I knew I was eventually going to have to make a standalone video on this topic. I've talked about it on stream before, but I wanted to address in its own video why I think Maxime Bernier's PPC is effectively just a scam these days. And I'm saying this as someone who literally voted for the People's Party of Canada back in 2021. Aaron O'Toole was not a real conservative, so I did not support him in the election against Justin Trudeau because I actually thought it would have been better, and I think it's been proven to have been better for Aaron O'Toole to lose, Justin Trudeau to hold on to his minority government for a little bit longer so that we could re-roll the dice on a leader and get someone like Pierre Poilievre instead of O'Toole. O'Toole is awful, and I'm very happy to see him go, and it's great that Jamil Jivani has taken his place in the riding of Durham. Jamil, despite what PPC influencers will say, is actually a very strong conservative both on fiscal issues as well as social issues. But I'm making this video, and what inspired me to was PPC influencers making really unhinged rant videos and social media posts on Twitter yesterday, basically trying to call all Conservative Party supporters stupid, naive, or somehow cowardly because they're not supporting the PPC. You wonder why people don't support you? Maybe it's not only because your leadership is incompetent, but you guys are kind of horrible people whenever you're trying to convince them to vote for you. You basically just insult people into trying to vote for your party, which I'm not sure if you guys have seen Justin Trudeau's marketing recently. It doesn't work. You can't talk down to people and expect that they're going to take you seriously. But anyways, I'm not calling the PPC a scam for sort of typical reasons you sometimes see from conservative supporters. I don't agree with these reasons. People say it's because they're working for the Liberals. They're trying to split Conservative Party votes on behalf of Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. That's not it, guys. I actually think that vote splitting in most cases is not an actual issue. People are not voting for the PPC, but they would have voted for the Conservatives if the PPC wasn't there. People vote for the party they want. There are very few instances in Canada of real vote splitting, especially vote splitting from a party that's only set up to try and split the vote. That happened in Ontario in 2022 between the New Blue Party and the Ontario Party. The Ontario Party was effectively just set up to try and hurt the New Blue Party, but that's another story for another day. The reason I say the PPC is a scam is because Maxime Bernier, at least to me, has never actually seemed like he really wants to win a seat in Parliament. In fact, he seems to do things on purpose in order to not win a seat in Parliament. And then you might be thinking, if you're a PPC supporter, well, why would Bernier want to do that? He would benefit so greatly by winning a seat. It would help the party out to win a seat in Parliament. Well, Maxime Bernier is notoriously lazy. He does not like working hard. And think about it. He already gets a $114,000 salary from the PPC and expenses a lot of his travel and food to the party as well. He already is actually making pretty good money these days, plus he will get his federal pension later, so why go back into Parliament when it would actually only delay you getting your pension? And I don't think he's doing this just for financial reasons. I think it's just that he doesn't really know what to do if he wins a seat, so it's better to just not win a seat. And when I say he's trying to not win a seat, a lot of people will say, well, I keep seeing him campaigning really hard for different elections he's running it. Sure, anyone can put on a good display. I could start up the Wyatt Claypool party, and I could go all around Canada, door knocking, handing out literature, and really looking like I'm trying hard to try and get into Parliament. That doesn't mean that a person like Maxime Bernier doesn't know. He's a smart man. He knows that the way he's been running in these races is not a way that will ever actually get him into office. And small parties have succeeded in the past. The Green Party has a few seats because it figured out how to win individual ridings. Reform Party figured out how to win individual ridings. In fact, Deborah Gray, their first MP, she ran back in the 1988 election, the first time Reform contested an election. Reform in that election only got 2% of the vote. I think it was like 2.1% of the vote overall. It was like 2.09%. Deborah Gray in the riding of Beaver Lake, I believe, only won 13.8% of the vote in their first contest in 88. But then in 89, the by-election, she won 47% because Reform figured out who their support base was in these ridings. They targeted them and they got them out to vote for them, as well as they converted over a lot of PC voters. Now with Bernier, he has not done anything in order to actually win a seat. Even Elizabeth May in Saanich and the Gulf Islands, that used to be an alliance riding, conservative alliance riding, and she figured out in 2011 how the Greens could win it. They even flew in Green Party USA volunteers into that riding. They concentrated all their support into that riding. Bernier did not do that in 2019. So when I say that PPC is a scam, they were effectively a scam since 2018 because Bernier had no plan to actually win a riding, even though he knows how to win elections. Bernier, and I'll even just quickly bring you back to 2015. He's always done very well in elections. His lowest percent winning was 50%. Bernier back in 2015, an election that was not very nice to the Conservatives, he won 58.89% of the vote. That was very good. Now in 2019, he didn't even have a terrible outcome. He won 28.37% of the vote. Richard Lahoe won 38.59, beating him. And you could say, well, that's a pretty bad loss. He lost by, 10.2% of the vote. That's a very close election, though, when you actually think of the fact that Bernier, if he just converted 3,500 or 3,800 or so voters from Richard to himself, and he could have even stolen some votes from the bloc, he could have won this election. The reason I am now blaming Bernier for this loss is because he never campaigned in 2019 in Beauce. He never did. He was across the country in Saskatchewan and BC, Alberta, rural Ontario, trying to win votes out there when he wasn't focusing on his riding. He even spent more than Richard did. He spent $92,000 on this race, where Richard only spent $88,000. And money does not buy votes, but it does buy you effort on the ground. Bernier should have maxed out the federally allowed limit on spending in his riding. He should have stayed in his riding the entire time. And frankly, he should have flown in PPC volunteers from every province into Beauce, because as a new party leader, your first mission is to prove the formula can work in at least one riding. That's where the Greens have been able to go from one riding to three, despite being a nutty party that's frankly like basically a bunch of anti-Semitic communists. They figured out the kind of ridings that they can get out the vote for, and they target those ridings. Bernier's excuse in 2019 was, well, we had a lot of support in rural areas, so I went to rural areas to win votes. Okay, who cares about the popular vote? It's a first past the post system. And then some PPC people will say, well, this is why we need proportional representation, because the first past the post system isn't fair. It actually is fair because geography actually should get a vote, that rural areas should not be overwhelmed by the large populations in cities. This is why first past the post is actually pretty fair, because it gives rural areas a little bit more power than they would have in proportional representation systems. Anyways, now moving on to, I'll bring it back up on screen, to 2021. Again, a race, or actually, let's go to 2020. I'll go in order. In 2020, in York Centre, Maxime Bernier only got 3.56% of the vote. I don't know why he contested this riding as the leader. This is a riding where the PPC never even ran a candidate back in 2019. And I want to quickly show something on screen, because you might be thinking, well, the leader is going to contest open by-elections just to keep the name of the party out there. Sure, you could have just thrown in some random guy and it probably would have been better. Don't embarrass your leader by throwing them into races they have no chance of winning. But Bernier quite literally spent $27,000 trying to win 642 votes. That's embarrassing, because Bernier does not have a good ground game. He's bad at door knocking, and he's bad to one-to-one voter contact. You'll notice he mostly just sticks to social media or doing rallies with people who already like him. This is why rallies are not actual support. Rallies are just the few hundred people that like you in an area showing up for a banquet or whatever. That's not actual support. It's getting the average voter to show up for you that matters more than getting your own hardcore supporter to out to vote. Anyways, I will then move on to the next election. 2021, he was again in Beauce contesting the election, and he lost to Richard Lahoe by an even larger margin. He lost 10.17% of the vote since he last ran. He only got 18.2%. Richard Lahoe got 48.3%. And so that actually shows that Maxime Bernier has some sticking power in this riding. Bernier, again, outspent Richard Lahoe, but again, Maxime Bernier did not show up in this riding the entire election. He was out again in rural areas in Alberta, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, doing rallies and not rallying in his own riding, not door knocking in his own riding. And you could say, well, it's because Richard was very popular, so Bernier decided not to contest this riding because he would have lost anyways. Goodness, it was a race where the PPC was riding pretty high. And again, with just maybe 7,000 voter conversions from the Conservatives in this race, he could have won. It's not that hard to win, especially in Beauce. This is actually an ideal riding. He was the incumbent in 2018 or 2019. It is a province where running against mass immigration is actually very popular. He has spent more than the Conservative. He could have easily overwhelmed him with volunteers, and he chose not to. He chose to go around in the country in places where he was not going to win. Now, I want to go to the by-election in Portage-Lisgar. And this is one where I've been told by PPC supporters, well, Bernier worked really hard, and so it's not that bad that he lost. Well, he literally lost voter percentages since the last election. His Simon Wiebe, the PPC candidate in 2021, got 21% of the vote, and Bernier lost 4.42% of the voting share to Brandon Leslie, who's taking over for Candice Bergen. Remember, Candice Bergen stepped down from Parliament as the MP for Portage-Lisgar in February. And then the by-election was in like June 12th or something like that. That was the date of it. Do you know when Bernier announced he was running in this riding? It was like May. He announced right when the race was being held, right when the by-election started up, like the actual writ was dropped. He only started campaigning in May. He knew that the race was coming since February, and he only started campaigning 30 days before. He could have been there for 4 months ahead of the by-election even being called in order to campaign. He basically let Brandon Leslie have an easy 5-6 months of campaigning where he didn't actually have to compete against Bernier, because Brandon first competed for the nomination, spoke to voters, interacted with people, and then Bernier came in the last 30 days and said, vote for me because I'm more hardcore than Brandon. And even then, he's basically lying the entire time, pretending he was pro-life when Brandon Leslie's actually pro-life, and Bernier was famously pro-abortion for his entire career up to 5 seconds before that race. This is why I think Bernier's party is a scam. Bernier has had every opportunity to actually prove his party can work in a singular riding. And all he does is he pretends like it's a proportional representation election and just goes around to ridings where the PPC is generally popular but does not have the infrastructure to win, and just tries to get votes across the country but not in concentrated areas. And another reason you'll look at the PPC and just notice how incompetent they are is look at the EDAs. Their EDAs, their electoral district associations, are completely inactive. That's why every once in a while you'll see a news headline saying 50 PPC EDAs got deregistered. This isn't Elections Canada going after them, treating them badly. These EDAs are not filing their returns, their financial returns every year, and naturally Elections Canada saying it's an inactive EDA. You guys are now dissolved. And that's not them going after them. That's just basic rules to keep financial fraud from happening. And the PPC can't even keep these EDAs in place, yet I keep hearing how they have such hardcore support. And if you have supposedly hardcore support, you shouldn't go from the general election in 2021 having 21% of the vote and a lot of votes that you got, and then in the by-election, none of those people showed up, because they really only showed up for you because they didn't like Aaron O'Toole. That's why, since 21, all of the by-elections, even in the one Bernie ran in, they've been down in terms of the percentage of the vote. Happened in Durham again. Patricia Collins ran for call-in. She ran for the second time. She ran in 21, and then she was running the by-election. So they even had signs probably made up for her that they kept since the last race. She had higher name recognition in that riding compared to other PPC candidates running for the first time, and she still fell on her face, because not only is leadership not focused on actually winning these ridings by door knocking, by doing real on-the-ground things that reach the average voter, they also just seem to be pretty unpleasant. Going around calling voters stupid, calling them naive, calling them cowardly, saying that, Pierre Poilievre is a mass immigration globalist, despite Pierre Poilievre opposing mass immigration. That makes you seem petty and unpleasant. People vote for people that they can see eye to eye with. And all these guys ranting on social media about how people just need to wake up. You're stupid sheeples. Get out of the matrix and whatnot. You guys have never door knocked in your lives, idiot. Go and door knock. Go talk to a normal person. Go see what they actually sound like at the doors. People do not talk like you do on social media. They actually want someone who seems stable. They don't want someone with crazy eyes, ranting in monotone tones the way Alex Cargill does on social media about the Matrix and there's globalists everywhere, blah, blah, blah. Everyone who supports the Conservatives is corrupt and they're being paid off. Maybe go talk to an average person. See how they talk about politics. Most people are not that political, and they just want someone that they can trust to vote for. People, as simplistic as it sounds like, again, people vote for parties that they agree with. They don't just vote for parties because they've been tricked. They vote for the conservatives and the liberals because they have well-established brands that they trust. And you could say, well, Justin Trudeau's super corrupt. Yes, and that's why he's losing votes. That's why even the Liberal Party's brand is not helping him these days. That's why Aaron O'Toole did not benefit that much from the Conservative Party brand, because no one trusted him personally. Pierre Poilievre, people trust him personally and they like the Conservative brand. That's why he's doing well. People do not trust Maxime Bernier and they don't care about the PPC brand, and that's why they're not doing well. There's a lot of PPC candidates out there who assume that they don't actually have to campaign because the PPC brand will lift them up. Yes, maybe if you're like a well-established brand, you can get away with not running in a seat that's safe for you. Most of the time, the brand might help you out a bit, but you have to keep reestablishing that brand every single election. By even the conservatives in ridings they cannot win, they try hard to prove that they can be trusted, so that in 20 years, maybe they can win that riding. The PPC, even the ridings they potentially could win, are not trying hard. I've never seen the PPC candidate who ran in my area at my door ever, not even dropping off literature. 2 times, 2 elections, 2019 and 2021. Never saw the guy. Tons of people. Like, this is a riding where this is the most blue suburban riding in the country. Calgary Signal Hill. He should be trying to run really hard in this riding, and he doesn't. But whatever. Anyways, that's my rant to combat a lot of the PPC rants. And I know they'll say, well, Wyatt, you're running for the Conservative Party nomination Calgary Signal Hill. You're a conservative, Shill. No, I'm not. I could never work for CSIS because I am incapable of lying. I will criticize other conservatives as if I don't believe they're being conservative enough. Ergo, myself and the National Telegraph basically went to war with Aaron O'Toole in the 21 election. That's why we're being sued. That's why we had 2 lawsuits from people associated with Aaron O'Toole. I'm still fighting one of them. Link in the description below for our Give, Send, Go legal fund. Paid $26,000 defending myself from that one. Paid $5,000 defending myself from another Aaron O'Toole employee back during the leadership election. That one's effectively resolved at this point. I'm not someone who's a Conservative Party shill. I am only running for the Conservatives now because their brand is better with Pierre Poilievre at the helm. So I'm comfortable running in Calgary Signal Hill. Shameless plug: if you live on the west side of Calgary, vote for me in this riding. This is what the new riding boundaries will look like. The normal sort of stuff I say about it. Buy membership. Go check out my website, wyattclaypool.com, in the description below. But no, I'm not doing this because I'm a conservative shill or anything. I am very much the opposite. I even supported you guys in 21, and now you're pretending like I only say things because I'm conservative. If you think that people are only saying things because they're not part of your club, then it's probably because your club's not very popular. If you're going to just discount anything that anyone says who's not already a PPC supporter, you're going to find that your pool keeps shrinking. I said this joke on social media one time, and I think it's absolutely true. There's a lot of truth to it. Once the PPC is down to only one supporter left, even that person will have to denounce themselves as a secret globalist. The party is going into a purity death spiral where everyone who doesn't 100% agree with every single thing that Maxime Bernier thinks, or frankly just random PPC influencers think, are labeled as somehow naive, stupid, or cowardly and kicked out of the party. I know people who ran for the PPC in 21. They've been kicked out for wondering where the constitution of the party is that Bernier has been promising for years. If you're kicking people out for calling you out for not fulfilling your promises, you're a dead party. You're acting like the Liberal Party does, except you're like, less popular. So really, where does that put the PPC? I don't know. It's sort of sad that they're more pathetic than even the Liberals are. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. See you around.